Okay, so today's video, I wanted to talk about this thing right here. This is the notch replacement. It's what we call the pill, or if you want to sound more professional, the dynamic island, okay? It's really cool actually. I've been using the iPhone 14 Pro for the last 2 weeks, but I've noticed that the dynamic island is not always better than the notch. And in my book, I think that everything that is replacing something else that's older, it has to be better all the way, you know? So there's a couple of things where I like this pill-shaped dynamic island, and it's mostly the feeling of something new. It feels like a new way to use your smartphone. You can use this smartphone, you can basically multitask in a way that hasn't really been done before. I really applaud Apple for thinking outside the box. Now, multitasking has never been Apple's strong suit, but this is actually the first real true multitask experience on an iPhone, in my experience. The other would be having a YouTube video play down here below, but I don't really like that feature. So no, this is the real true multitask feature. Now, this is all good, and I think we're just getting started here. I think this is like version 1 of the dynamic island, obviously, and I think that Apple is gonna put a lot more interesting things into this dynamic island. So it's going to be really cool to see, and I think it's actually that good that even when the punch hole will disappear, when they find out a good and efficient way to keep the selfie screen behind the screen and it's invisible, I still think we're going to have a dynamic island because it is that good. Now, situations where the dynamic island kind of bothers me. It's mostly when I'm watching YouTube videos in landscape mode, and this dynamic island is very intrusive. It actually becomes a part of the video, and I don't like that. Now, the notch, as annoying as that thing was, that peninsula, it was actually a bit higher up, so it didn't actually bother me when I was watching videos and stuff like that. So the dynamic island, as cool as it is, sometimes it does feel intrusive. Now, I've made other videos where I basically mentioned that what they could do is make that pill a bit smaller, a bit skinnier, and a bit slimmer, like, you know, tweak it in, tuck in the shirt, if that makes sense. That would be really awesome, because then we would get something a bit more less intrusive, you know what I mean? So that's something that I'm sort of wishing for in future versions. But I'm still sort of going back to the question, is the dynamic island better than the notch? And the answer to that is unfortunately yes and no. Like, certain things are really good. The multi-touch that I explained, it's very cool to use actually. But the negative side is that it's not better in all areas. And so one thing I also want to mention is that there is some space between this pill and the top bezel here, and it's not being used for anything. So you have a lit up amount of pixels here, and they don't really do anything. Like, it might as well just be a peninsula, you know? And if you're gonna have a peninsula, then you might as well just have a notch. You see what I'm getting at? Like, I like the idea, but Tim, if you're watching, and I know you're watching, you're probably subscribing to this channel, here's my suggestion. You remember a couple of years ago when we had the teardrop on some devices? Like, it was kind of popular for about a year or two. Just a small little teardrop on the top here, like a very, very tiny little notch. That's something that I think that would be much better actually than this pill-shaped dynamic island. But again, it's really cool. Once you start using the dynamic island, you just don't want to go back to the mainland. It's that good, really. Okay, that's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed this little video, and hopefully I'll see you in the I can't talk today. Why do I even bother making these videos? I can't even talk. I'll see you in the next one.